Frank Lloyd Wright was an American architect, interior designer, writer, and educator who designed more than 1,000 structures and completed 532 works. His work includes original and innovative examples of many different building types, including offices, churches, schools, skyscrapers, hotels, and museums. Wright also designed many of the interior elements of his buildings, such as the furniture and the stained glass. Throughout this presentation, I will discuss Wright's influences and the different movements that he, in turn, influenced. Wright believed in designing structures which were in harmony with humanity and its environment, a philosophy he called organic architecture, which I will discuss in more detail later. He was a leader of the Prairie School movement of architecture and developed the concept of the Usonian home. Growing up, Wright's mother was a teacher and taught her children at an early age. She went to a convention and came across some Froebel blocks, which were a new technique of educating at the time. She bought some, and Wright grew up playing with them. He said about the blocks, "For several years I sat at the little kindergarten tabletop and played with the cube, the sphere, and the triangle. These smooth wooden maple blocks are all on my fingers to this day." Wright, like most at this time, was influenced by John Ruskin and William Morris. Although he went against their philosophy of handmade design and much preferred the machine as the use of his design, saying that it was the way of the future, simple design, true to an organic form. Another influence for Frank was Louis Sullivan. He worked for him for 5 years, and Sullivan took him under his wing, giving him great responsibility in his firm. Wright would later refer to him as Lieber Meister, which is German for dear master. However, Wright designed houses on the side while working there at Adler and Sullivan, which was against his contract and was soon found out and let go. The Hickox house and the Brady house, conveniently next door to each other, are the first of Wright's designs that are typical Prairie School style. The Prairie houses are inspired by the native prairie landscape around Chicago. The flat expanse that surrounds Kankakee inspires the horizontal lines, the low buildings with shallow sloping roofs, overhangs, and terraces, all using unfinished materials. The Thomas house and the Willits house are also in this prairie style, and are considered some of the first works of this style as well. These houses are credited with being the first examples of the open plan. Windows, whenever possible, are long and low, allowing a connection between the interior and nature outside. That was new to Western architecture and reflected the influence of Japanese architecture on Wright. The greatest example of Wright's prairie style is the Robbie House, with its soaring cantilevered roof lines supported by a 110-foot-long channel of steel. Its living and dining areas form virtually one uninterrupted space. This building had a profound influence on young European architects after World War I and is sometimes called the cornerstone of modernism. Once again in the Coonley House, we see the influence of the Prairie School style with the horizontal lines and the overhanging eaves. The windows are grouped in horizontal bands, and we can see the integration of the pond into his design. Avery Coonley was very rich and allowed Wright the freedom that he loved to design this house. Wright was a man of fine taste, and this often led to him going well over budget. Taliesin was the summer home of Frank. This was his studio. Some of the buildings designed here were Falling Water, the Guggenheim Museum, the Johnson Wax headquarters, and the first Usonian home. Wright explored his ideas of organic architecture on this house. The chimneys and stone piers were built from local limestone, laid by the stonemasons in a way that evoked the outcroppings of Wisconsin's surroundings. The Gordon House is a great example of a Usonian home, another movement started by Wright. This featured flat roofs and were mostly constructed without basements and without attics. Intended to be highly practical houses for middle-class clients, as in the Prairie houses, Usonian living areas focused on the fireplace. Bedrooms were typically isolated and relatively small, encouraging the family together in the main living areas. The Graycliff House is created in Wright's high organic style. Wright said of it, "Coming in the house would be something like putting on your hat and going outdoors." He creates a strong connection visually with the interior and exterior, making them become one. Its site, high on a bluff overlooking Lake Erie, inspired Wright to create a home that was transparent with views through the building to the lake beyond. Falling Water is Frank Wright's most famous piece of architecture. Built in 1935 in Pennsylvania, it was named the best all-time work of American architecture. This is the essence of organic architecture, which is the philosophy that promotes harmony between human habitation and the natural world through design approaches so sympathetic and well integrated with its site that buildings, furnishings, and surroundings become part of a unified, interrelated composition. As you can see, the waterfall is very much a part of the house. Wright wanted the new residents to live with the waterfall to make it a part of their everyday lives. He didn't want them to just look at it every now and then. This ended up being one of Wright's most expensive pieces, recently costing $11 million just to restore. Taliesin West was Frank's winter home and school in the desert from 1937 until his death in 1959 at the age of 91. Today it is the main campus of the Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture and houses the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation. Wright felt strongly about his connection to the desert, and this house, being in Arizona, he wanted it to reflect the desert-like surroundings of not only the flat plains, but plants and the animals. The Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York City occupied Wright for 16 years. It was one of his last designs and is probably his most recognized masterpiece. Its unique central geometry was meant to allow visitors to easily experience Guggenheim's collection of non-objective geometric paintings by taking an elevator to the top level and then viewing artworks by walking down the slowly descending central spiral ramp. Although somehow people forgot this most important feature of Wright, and they currently have design exhibits to be viewed by walking up the curved walkway rather than walking down from the top level. Those idiots! What will they ruin next? Anyways, the museum is still an amazing piece of architecture. For the design of my birdhouse, I looked at Wright's works and picked out the main influences: organic architecture, the prairie school movement, and the Usonian home. I ideated on these concepts, and here are a few of my ideas. I thought that I could make the tree a part of the birdhouse, have it integrated so the tree is a part of the bird's life every day. I also thought of cutting up a tree and using that as pieces of wood, and many other ideas that are here. I decided on this as my final form. I was influenced by the prairie school style and the Usonian homes, how it is centered around the fireplace, but in the bird's case I wanted to center it around the eggs. So they would lay their eggs in the center here, and that would be the center of their homes here in this birdhouse. You can see the flat horizontal lines and the overhanging eaves. The windows are grouped in a horizontal band. I also cut the tree out so it wouldn't take away from the space inside, but you can still see the bare trunk flush with the floor and the wall. This adds to the organicness of the piece. So, there you have it. This is my birdhouse, influenced by the amazing Frank Lloyd Wright. Thank you for listening. My name is Hayden Harvey. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.